spiritual home, a religious space where they can be seekers with others in community. Tell them about us and invite them to check us out online, because remember, whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on your life's journey, you are welcome here. And okay, if you are new today, and I say this all the time, but I think it never gets old because we like to keep people connected. If you are new today, please put your name and email address into the chat box so we can make sure we keep you posted on all things UU Catskills. Unitarian Universalism is a unique liberal faith guided by 7 principles and 6 sources. To learn more about our faith in general and how we live into those values, please be sure to visit our website. And I just realized I left something open that might. Okay, here we go. That's okay. All right, so I like this slide. I like it because it reminds me of all we do in the world, or at least we want to live into. It's a good reminder of what we hold important. We're going to be talking about our theology today, and I think this slide is a reminder of how we live into that theology. Here at UU Catskills, we live into our principles by supporting the movement for Black lives, by being active voices in an effort for addressing climate change. We are supporters of the Ulster Immigrant Defense Network and advocates for LGBTQ rights. I've got a number of reminders. So this is another reminder for our community circles. They've been meeting. I think almost everyone is assigned now. If for some reason you are not, put that in the chat, because things fall through the cracks sometimes. So if you're not, please put your information in the chat and we'll make sure you get connected. And this is I just keep putting this up. This is a reminder. There are so many people you can reach out to. This is now every Friday in the weekly update. So you should have it on hand and in the newsletter, how to get in touch with us and who those us are. Here is your Cosm, Rosalind, Rob, Karen, Regina, and Vicky. And your board of trustees, Kristen, Tom, Kathy, Karma, Erin, Joyce, and Jerry Lynn. And after I show those slides of those wonderful smiling faces of people doing important, fulfilling work, I would like to just do a reminder that lay leadership is important, necessary, enriching, even fun sometimes, if we make it so, for a necessary part of keeping UU Catskills alive and thriving and growing into the future. We are currently looking for folks who are interested or curious about serving on the board. We were joking about nerdy musicians. We're just looking for any kind of math nerd or math lover, maybe, to be an apprentice treasurer to Karma, and then eventually becoming the treasurer with your own apprentice too, right? We're trying to have more than one person handle that challenging job. So if that seems interesting to you, please reach out. We also would really like folks who find the worship process compelling, or there's something they love about it, especially those of you with background in the theater, you know who you are. Please think about joining our worship committee. We'd also love more folks on the membership committee, and we really need some help with communication. So if you're good at any of those things, we're not asking you for 1 million hours a week, a couple hours a week, and being strategic about how we use your skills, maybe even less than a couple hours a week. I don't want to make it even sound that scary, right? So think about it. This week, we've got another round of interesting stuff going on. Today will be UU 101, and this is for folks who are either new to the Unitarian Universalism or new to our congregation, who are interested in becoming members. So you're going to join me in a breakout room with that. We have our ongoing grief support group with Leela Clark at 7 p.m. I realize I never actually announced meditation buddies, but I'm gonna, I saw this on the calendar, but I could be wrong. So put it in the chat, but I know Donna and Paula have been doing a meditation buddies program. I thought it was Monday and Thursdays at 8 a.m. I could be wrong, but if I'm right, then yay me. On Tuesday, all the folks who are tech hosts, or if you have a desire to be a tech host, because that's how you think you can help out the congregation, we're doing a tech host training with me on 4:30, and then we have Women's Circle at 7:30. On Thursday, the worship committee, so this is if you're interested, please join us on 10 a.m. And then the worship committee will be hosting a Zoom Basics at 2. So if you're still confused, like where does my picture go and how do I chat or any of those things, please come to the Zoom Basics. I think you will learn a lot. I know you will learn a lot, and we have a fun time in there too. We have the board meeting at 4, which, as you may or may not know, is open for observers. You just have to let the board president, Kristen Shara, know. And then there's bedtime story at 7. And of course, our ongoing Kundalini yoga at 9:30 on Friday. So please check out the website for all that good stuff. I also want to remind you, a very cool thing, that our climate action team is leading services next Sunday, and they are going to have choose your own breakout rooms for things you are interested in learning more about or participating in. And wanted to put the topics up. There'll be a room talking about green energy, a room talking about gardening, a room that is going to, I think, having guests from the groups we support and learning about how, we've endorsed a number of environmental climate organizations and initiatives. So come learn more about that. Or if you just want to chit chat and maybe even share ideas like we did a few weeks ago, you could do that in room 4. So that, I just wanted to have it in your mind for next week. And while I'm on this slide for next week, I'm also going to remind everyone that on the 21st, we are doing a partner service with UU Albany. We're doing a nice little road trip without the road, but the trip. I don't know which one we take out of there. Anyway, we're doing a virtual combo service with UU Albany, which I'm very excited about, but they meet at 10 a.m., folks. So write it in big letters somewhere on your calendar that we're going to have to start a half hour early on March 21st. Okay, so as I said in the beginning, I am Reverend Leonisa, and I do prefer to be called Reverend Leonisa or Reverend L, as some of you have taken to, and my pronouns are she and hers. And I'm grateful you're all here this morning, and I hope that today and every day you will be inspired by the words of James Vila Blake, written in 1894. Love is the spirit of this faith, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Welcome into this time apart from time. And we will begin with some beautiful music by our own Bill Toole.
I believe Bill's not a co-host, so he couldn't unmute himself.
Thank you, Bill. My all-time favorite pieces of music there. Please join me as we light our chalice together.
We light this chalice in grateful, loving community.
Even in the darkest of times,
its flame light paths
to courage, justice, and hope.
Our opening words this morning come from the Reverend Leslie Takahashi. To worship means to consider that which has worth. Today we consider with gratitude the many gifts of this community. The opportunity to be affirmed in who we are and to offer that affirmation to others. The chance to stand up together to help remake the world in the ideal of justice. The freedom to choose one's own path to truth and to learn from the travelogues of others. The space to expand one's own spirit and to reconnect after busy or humdrum weeks with the sustaining truths of one's life. Regular reminders that we must see our world through the lens of love and the aspiration to consider all life as precious, for if all of it is made of stardust, how can it not be wondrous? So this morning, let's welcome all of these gifts with gratitude, for they have been paid for with many currencies. The blood of the martyrs who died so that we can be free in our religion. The sweat of those who persisted in justice's name against hostility and adversity. The tears of those who struggled to build better lives for those in this life. The questions of our children as they understand the world anew and offer their understandings to us as fresh lenses. The laughter and joy of those giddy with the embrace of community. The dollars and cents of those who gave what they could and then stretched a little more. The infinite small acts of service that make the parts greater than the whole, done by those who knew themselves in sympathy with our purpose. So today we consider with gratitude and humility what it means to pay forward what has been paid forward for us. And now with all of this, let us enter into worship with gladness in our hearts. And we'll do so with our unison affirmation, a reminder of why we gather here. May we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love to all living beings. May we know once again that we are not isolated, but connected in wonder and joy, to mystery and miracle in the universe, in this community, and in each other. And this week begins the launch of Pledge Month. Dun, da, da, da. This year, as we do every year, I know the screen is black because there's something coming, all right? So I just want you to be prepared, right? This year, and like we do every year, we are reminded of our call to steward this community through financial pledges. We have an ambitious yet important pledge goal and hope that all of you will take part in sustaining this beloved community. We are also trying to do large portions of this electronically. So all of the information for the pledge campaign is currently on the website. And you will be getting an email this week with direct links to make it even easier for one-stop pledging, as it were. But to kick us off, here is a wonderful video made by Donna and Rob's son. Thank you, Ross. And so you can get a little bit of a sense of what your fellow members feel about this community and our pledge drive.
UU Catskills, where we live into our values with our beloved community and beyond. Together, we can do it.
Hi everyone, my name is Karen, this is Mark Howenstein.
And we are financially committed to the UU because it provides a spiritually supportive community for us and puts our values into practice, especially regarding social justice, bringing social justice into the world.
Thank you.
I support UU Catskills financially because it's a priority, and this beloved community is an integral part of my life.
Why do I support UU Catskills? Good people doing good things.
I am committed financially to UU Catskills because it is my rock. I would be lost without this community. It gives me the opportunity to live into my values with its commitment to social justice.
I am financially committed to UU Catskills because it is essential to continue to have a Unitarian Universalist presence in Ulster County.
I am committed financially to UU Catskills to continue to be a beacon in our community for justice, equality, and reverence of all life.
I am financially committed to UU Catskills, enabling our congregation to grow itself as well as to better serve the wider community.
Thank you all. You will hear a little more about our pledge later in the service and each Sunday, hopefully. And so check your inboxes. And if you have questions, you can reach out to, well, you'll see it in your emails. We'll just let them do. So now, with that cheery image of all these folks committed to UU Catskills, let's sing the fantastic, inspiring hymn, Gather the Spirit.
Compassion and strength.
I love that hymn. That just, we don't need to do it again, even though I like it, but no. But I do want us to transition to our not for children only time. And I'm going to share with you a book that I just find incredibly beautiful by the author Jacqueline Woodson, illustrated by E.B. Lewis, entitled The Other Side. That summer, the fence that stretched through our town seemed bigger. We lived in a yellow house on one side of it. White people lived on the other. And Mama said, "Don't climb over that fence when you play." She said it wasn't safe. That summer, there was a girl who wore a pink sweater. Each morning, she climbed up on the fence and stared over at our side. Sometimes I stared back. She never sat on that fence with anybody. That girl didn't. Once, when we were jumping rope, she asked if she could play, and my friend Sandra said no, without even asking the rest of us. I don't know what I would have said. Maybe yes, maybe no. That summer, everyone and everything on the other side of that fence seemed far away. When I asked my mama why, she said, "Because that's the way things have always been." Sometimes when me and Mama went into town, I saw that girl with her mama. She looked sad sometimes, that girl did. "Don't stare," my mama said. "It's not polite." It rained a lot that summer. On rainy days, that girl sat on the fence in a raincoat. She let herself get all wet and acted like she didn't even care. Sometimes I saw her dancing around in puddles, splashing and laughing. Mama wouldn't let me go out in the rain. "That's why I bought you rainy day toys," my mama said. "You stay inside here where it's warm and safe and dry." But every time it rained, I looked for that girl, and I always found her somewhere near the fence. Someplace in the middle of summer, the rain stopped. When I walked outside, the grass was damp and the sun was already high up in the sky. And I stood there with my hands up in the air, and I felt brave that day. I felt free. I got close to that fence, and that girl asked me my name. "Clover," I said. "My name's Annie," she said. "Annie Paul." "I live over yonder," she said, "by where you see the laundry. That's my blouse hanging on the line." She smiled then. She had a pretty smile. And then I smiled, and we stood there looking at each other, smiling. "It's nice up on this fence," Annie said. "You can see all over." I ran my hand along the fence. I reached up and touched the top of it. "A fence like this was made for sitting on," Annie said. She looked at me sideways. "My mama says I shouldn't go on the other side," I said. "My mama says the same thing, but she never said nothing about sitting on it." "Neither did mine," I said. That summer, me and Annie sat together on that fence, and when Sandra and them looked at me funny, I just made believe I didn't care. Some mornings my mama watched us. I waited for her to tell me to get down from that fence before I break my neck or something, but she never did. "I see you made a new friend," she said one morning. And I nodded, and Mama smiled. That summer, me and Annie sat on that fence and watched the whole wide world around us. One day, Sandra and them were jumping rope near the fence, and we asked if we could play. "I don't care," Sandra said. And when we jumped, Sandra and me were partners, the way we used to be. When we were too tired to jump anymore, we sat up on the fence, all of us in a long line. Someday somebody's going to come along and knock this old fence down, Annie said. And I nodded. Yeah, I said. Someday. So I was picking that story. I was thinking a lot about universalism and our first principle and how we have the theology to do the work that we do. And I just love that those little girls saw each other. They saw the humanity in one another. And that's what was important. And I love how sitting on that fence became a place for them finding each other and knowing each other rather than the divider that it was designed to be. So with that in mind, with some first principle thinking, universalism about fences that divide and fences that can be torn down, I invite you into some time for reflection and meditation. So get comfortable. Put your feet on the ground. Take a few deep breaths to get started. And I just want you to be fully present, fully aware of what might feel like your theological roots of why you're sitting here and why you are maybe moved by that story. Use that to see where you go. I'm going to meditate for a few minutes and I'll ring the bell when we're done. As we sit together now, I invite you to call to mind any sorrows or challenges you are carrying in your hearts today. You can place a hand on your heart, you can write them in the chat, or you can just feel them. Know that your community holds your concerns and sorrows with you. We transition into the joys we might be carrying, the blessings we are grateful for, like some sunshine peeking through on a cold day. Put your hands on your heart for your joy. Write them in the chat, however you'd like to share. Please join me in the spirit of prayer. Spirit of life, source of love, carry our joys and sorrows, our concerns and hopes and wonderings and wanderings, and surround us with love and guidance. Remind us every day of the importance of this community and our liberal religious faith. Help us to listen with open hearts and minds so we can do the important work of healing, growth, and justice. Blessed be, and amen. Going to return us to our shared screen. I guess not. There it goes. Okay. For art offering, we're thrilled or very happy this month that our half plate donation will be shared with the LGBTQ Center of the Hudson Valley. We know that this is not just a partner organization in our hearts and in our beliefs, but also because our dear member, Peter Criswell, is its executive director. So I encourage everyone to support the important work of this partner organization of ours. And while we're doing that, the information is on the screen. I think Karma might also drop it in the chat. You can just go right to uucatskills.org, donate, or the text giving, which I think is just one of the coolest inventions. Lately, I've just been trying to support as many people and organizations as I can right through my phone. It's sort of amazing how far we've come with technology. So please be generous. And I'm going to give us a beautiful, thoughtful piece of music from a group called the Amani Winds. I'm not sure if many of you know them. The oboist has been my friend for 20 odd years, Toyin Spellman Diaz, and this is their latest album called Brutes, and I asked Toyin if I could share this particular piece, and she said, absolutely. So I invite you to enjoy this piece from the Amani Winds and to give generously.
We need a new American Revolution. That will create a new ideology. Of comradeship in the great enterprise. Of building a society in which every man and woman can face tomorrow. Unencumbered by the burdens of the past, or the prejudices of the present. This calls for a revolution in the heart and soul of every American. This is what the first American Revolution did not have. This is what the new American Revolution must have.
Thank you for your generosity and support of this community and our partner organizations. And since we're talking about generosity, we're going to talk again about our pledge drive. And what better way to do with that than with another testimonial, a little ditty created by Board of Trustees member Jerry Lynn Mason. I hope you enjoy.
That money's got a lot to do. That money's got a lot to do. That money's got a lot to do because everything's connected. The minister's connected to the sermons are connected to the concepts are connected to the quest, and the quest connects us all. That money's got a lot to do. That money's got a lot to do. That money's got a lot to do because everything's connected. Community circles are connected to sharing. Sharing is connected to shared plate donations. Donations are connected to our community, and the community is connected to the world. That money's got a lot to do. That money's got a lot to do. That money's got a lot to do because everything's connected. Our income's connected to our expenses. Our expenses are connected to our ability. Our ability is connected to racial justice, and racial justice is what we want. That money's got a lot to do. That money's got a lot to do. That money's got a lot to do because everything's connected. Bedtime stories are connected to the children. The children are connected to the future. The future is connected to our bank account and what we're able to do. That money's got a lot to do. That money's got a lot to do. That money's got a lot to do because everything's connected. We are connected to the congregation is connected to the UUA is connected to the whole wide world, and the whole wide world is connected to God or the Spirit or nothing at all. It's really up to you to decide these kinds of things for yourself. That money's got a lot to do. That money's got a lot to do. That money's got a lot to do because everything's connected. That money's got a lot to do. That money's got a lot to do. That money's got a lot to do because pledging is a gift to our values. I said pledging is a gift to our values.
Thank you, Jerry Lynn, and our pledge committee. So if you still have questions about pledging or are curious, please know that Donna Schlockman, Paula Silby, Karen Howenstein, and Karma, but let's not bother Karma. She's got a lot going on. Try the other three. And if you have real questions about, or other questions about how much to give or things like that, please reach out to me. We can have that conversation. I don't want you to feel bad in any way, and I want you to feel really good. So reach out to me if you have questions about this part of our work. Thank you. It always makes me giddy. I like that. Especially the God or the Spirit. It's really up to you, right? That's why many of us are here. Okay. Now, we are going to do our reading. And I asked my child to do it for me because I wanted the voice of a lifelong UU, which I know we have many, but she was in the living room, so it was easiest. And the reading today comes from Widening the Circle, which I'm holding up to the camera, which you may or may not see. So this is lifelong UU, Rafaela, reading an excerpt from Widening the Circle of Concern, a chapter on our UU theology. And I will tell more about it in the sermon.
It can be said that contemporary Unitarian Universalism, as lived and as a living tradition, has two commitments: freedom of belief and its orientation toward inclusion, interdependentness, and justice. These two commitments have shaped our faith tradition in positive ways and also led us to some problematic dynamics. We have a deep and rich history with religious ancestors who literally gave off their life energies and life forces to allow us the privileges we enjoy today: freedom of belief, the task to search for truth and meaning, and the work to bring more justice into the world. Both Unitarians and Universalists were considered heretics by the Christian mainstreams of their times. The word heretic means able to choose and if our tradition have anything in common, it is exercising choice in the search for deeper understanding and faithfulness. Yet, the choice is the means, and the tenets of Universalism and Unitarianism the legacy to be held close. Freedom of belief promotes diversity of thoughts in our communities and fuels the responsible search for truth and meaning that leads towards beloved community. This freedom encourages exploration and experimentation, lending creativity and innovation to our communities. Yet, over the decades since the consolidation of Unitarians and Universalists, an overemphasis on individual exploration and experience as the primary, if not sole center of religious experience developed. This centering of the individual dissenters the communal as a locus of theological exploration. One of the unintended consequences has been the automized individualism of the search for truth and meaning without accountability to its impact in communities. This has a correlation with the way in which justice priorities and practices are lived in congregations. Justice-seeking practices of Unitarian Universalists are often not grounded on spiritual or ritual practices. Instead, justice-seeking takes the place of ritual and religious life. Justice practices cannot be used as surrogates for deepening our spiritual lives. Our justice work without theological resources and spiritual practices leads us down the path of burnout.
As today's reading starts, we as Unitarian Universalists have two overarching commitments: freedom of belief and an orientation toward inclusion, interdependence, and justice. Two very powerful ideas, and probably the reason why many of us became UUs. That, or you liked the idea of being part of a long line of heretics. This section from Widening the Circle of Concern, which is a report from the UU Special Commission, is asking us to examine these two ideas and to think more deeply about our UU theology as well as our theology of justice. As a peace educator, I have engaged with the concept of justice for years and looked at it from various interconnected points of entry, including, mutual justice, restorative justice, social justice, environmental justice. Justice is one of those words that invites hours of exploration and discussion, because when we start digging, we see that we might not all be on the same page. The dominant conceptions of justice appear in our language in terms of our legal system, in the sense of seeking justice after being wronged. In the USA, we have this core tenet that everyone has the right to pursue and receive justice. And we shroud this pursuit in the language of equality, that justice is blind. Of course, any quick glance at how this country really works, and we see quite clearly that justice is not an equitable process. I recently watched the film The United States versus Billie Holiday. Billie Holiday, as many of you know, was a jazz and blues singer who was also a drug addict, using heroin and other substances to numb years of trauma that began with sexual abuse in her childhood. But Billie Holiday was also supremely gifted and beautiful and Black. No stranger to suffering, she made it her mission to sing the 1939 Abel Meeropol penned tune, Strange Fruit, whenever she played clubs. Strange Fruit is a song about lynching. The lyrics go, "Southern trees bear strange fruit, blood on the leaves and blood at the root. Black bodies swinging in the southern breeze, strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees." Can you imagine for a second being in a jazz club with a white audience, with an all-black band on stage, and a Black woman in a gown with a gardenia tucked behind her ear singing those lyrics? Not a popular topic at the time, and yet the song was requested gig after gig. Now, the federal government was paying close attention, and one Federal Bureau of Narcotics agent was watching particularly closely. Johann Hari, who wrote Chasing the Scream, the first and last days of the war on drugs, says, "To Harry Anslinger, Billie Holiday was like the symbol of everything that America had to be afraid of. She had a heroin addiction because she'd been chronically raped as a child and was trying to deal with the grief and pain of that. And also, she was resisting white supremacy. And when she insisted on continuing on her right as an American citizen to sing Strange Fruit, Anslinger resolved to destroy her." And he did that. He threw her in jail. He planted evidence on her, and he used all manner of methods to target her because she dared to push back against our hateful, structurally violent system while living in a Black, female, gifted, and drug-addicted body. He wasn't pursuing justice. He was practicing dehumanization so he could legally do what America had been doing for hundreds of years already: silence and control Black people. Billie Holiday was a victim, not only of the American justice system, but in many ways, the structural violence that our country is mired in. Now jump ahead to 1972 and the example of Russell Maroon Shoatz, a member of the Black Panthers who became notorious as part of what was called the Philly Five, being convicted of murder in an act of retaliatory violence. He and 4 others were charged with blowing up a police station after Philadelphia police had routinely targeted Black activists and revolutionaries and killed a Black teenager in the streets. Maroon's conviction was only the start of his dehumanization. Maroon was held in solitary confinement for 22 consecutive years, being moved out of solitary only 7 years ago. Solitary confinement for 22 years. My father bought me this book a few years ago, Maroon the Implacable. Maroon's writings are brilliant, and for me evoke the words of Brian Stevenson: each of us is more than the worst thing we've ever done. But keeping Maroon in solitary was the perfect way to silence and dehumanize him, thus making him a victim of the American justice system. Because when we look around, even when we look at what prompted Maroon's crime, we see white police officers and, well, everyday folk interpreting stand your ground for themselves, killing unarmed, innocent Black people with regularity. And those white folks, those perpetrators of this direct violence, they walk free. They keep their jobs. They get to spend time with their families. So Maroon goes into solitary, but Daniel Pantaleo, who killed Eric Garner, is never even convicted of a crime. And his name is only one of many on the list of white people and cops who kill Black people and other people of color and never receive punishment. Clearly, justice has different meanings in the United States of America based on your skin color, or your wealth, or your religion, or your gender identity for that matter. So where does that get us? Where does it take us as we begin to think about a theology of justice within an unjust system? Certainly it makes me question any conception of justice that tries to distill it down to notions of right and wrong, fairness, equal, blind. I think most of us gathered here by now understand that. Maybe we've only come to see it and fully get it in the last few years. Maybe we're still grappling with understanding the systemic nature of it. But I hope that all of us can begin to see that justice has a definitional problem. Now, when I hear stories like the ones I've just shared, I feel rage, like real scary rage. And I'm reminded of a line from one of my favorite bands, Rage Against the Machine. Lead singer Zach De La Rocha says, "Anger is a gift," in a couple of songs. And in interviews, he'll say, "Anger is a gift." And he has a point, in the sense that the anger you feel when you see injustice or are a victim of oppression, that is a gift of awareness and an invitation to action. So maybe anger, or this righteous anger many UUs feel when we watch the news, is a sign that you are awake and that your anger can and should compel you to action. And I remember having just that conversation 20 or so years ago with an African-American colleague at the Museum of Natural History. And he said, "I have to keep a little bubble of anger always inside of me." But I'm not sure anger makes for good theology. Anger will eventually wear us out, break us down, or exhaust us. If we are in the revolution for the long haul, we need a theology that can sustain us. And this is what we are called to think about as UUs who are committed to justice. We are committed to dismantling the system of structural violence that we exist in. We are committed to naming and addressing Dr. King's giant triplets of militarism, materialism, and racism. So a new system based on human rights, equality, love can be born. And we need something to guide us. Addressing structural violence, also known as systemic racism or white supremacy, not only requires us to have an understanding of why we do what we do, since the theological why will sustain us, but it also requires us to remember that within our communities, we can model that theology, a theology of radical inclusion, a theology of universalism, and a theology that truly honors the inherent worth and dignity of everyone. No matter what you look like, how much money you have, whether you have a visible or invisible disability, what drugs you do, if you believe in God or don't believe in God, everyone. We need a theology of justice that helps us wrestle with the dichotomy we see every day in this country, with a deliberately unequal treatment of what you might call the haves and have-nots, or the 1% and the 99%. In order to grapple with the history of the United States, the foundational violence that is perpetuated to this day, we need a mighty theology to overcome that. Our reading, which is based on data taken from conversations with hundreds of UUs across the country, reminds us that justice-seeking practices of Unitarian Universalists are often not grounded on spiritual or ritual practices. Instead, justice-seeking takes the place of ritual and religious life. Justice practices cannot be used as surrogates for deepening our spiritual lives. Our justice work without theological resources and spiritual practices leads us down the path of burnout. And it may not be true for all of you, but I think it's true. I think we as UUs often see our justice work as spiritual practice. But it's not. It is a manifestation of our theology. It's how we live into our 7 principles and our theology. I always think of what Cornel West says when he says, never forget that justice is what love looks like in public. Love is the theology. So I know we have to think about this collectively, of course. But to start, I want to encourage you to explore and maybe write down your personal theology of justice. Actually, that's what I want you to talk about in the breakout rooms today. Where does your call for justice come from? And to get your juices flowing, I'm going to read a few things, and then I made a drawing because I found that it helped me to diagram my theology. Here's a mix of mine. Jesus' teachings on caring for all people, most clearly stated from my upbringing in the phrase, the preferential treatment of the poor, which I prefer to say the preferential treatment of the oppressed. And also, Jesus' teachings against empire, greed, and individualism. Now I add to that foundational Buddhist ideas, including non-duality and our inherent interconnectedness, which ties into a Baha'i saying I still carry from high school, one planet, one people, please. And of course, my studies as a scientist and my work as a scientist and science educator remind me that we are all made from the same star stuff, and all our actions are interdependent, which we see out our windows at every moment. And this was made even more clear to me when I was working with my students and colleagues at the American Indian Heritage School, where they taught me the hurt of one is the hurt of all. And of course, 30 years ago, I was introduced to the work of the Brazilian educator Paulo Freire, who reminds me that in the act of liberating the oppressed, we also liberate the oppressor. All of these things led me to find Unitarian Universalism and became part of the fertile mix where I was able to tie in the idea of universal salvation, or liberation if you prefer, and the importance of our first principle, inherent worth and dignity of every being. So I'm not sure you can see this very well, but I have a picture at some point I could show you. I decided to make a piece of art that helped me create my theology of justice. It's not fancy. It's actually mostly words. It's not too much. Maybe at the end of the services, I can show you on the screen. But I put everything I just told you in one place so that I can return and return again. And I want to encourage you all to think of what your theology is and fill one another in on it and let me know about it, because our services, I want our services to reflect your multiple theologies and our collective theology. Because here's the bonus. When we begin to understand our own theology of justice, it allows us to be more open to our UU peers locally and across the UUA who may have taken different paths and may have different foundations for their theology of justice. Because when we share these or those theologies with one another through ritual and worship and learning and community, our collective theology of justice just gets stronger. We, as a collective, get stronger. We find what will sustain us. May we take the time to define our theology of justice. May we share it without fear of judgment. May we see that our theology of justice makes a stronger collective to fight the good fight and make good trouble. May it be so. And amen. I have chosen a Holly Near song for us to close with. And the words are on the screen. It's a very easy melody. And I would like to invite everyone to try and sing along with it.
I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us, so lift me up to the light of change. There is a hurting in my family, and there is sorrow in my town. There is a panic all across the nation, and there is wailing the whole world round. But I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us, so lift me it dishonors those who go before us. So lift me up to the light of
I am open. I am willing. God, it's fantastic, right? Today we close with the famous Theodore Parker quote in its entirety, not the truncated version we mostly hear that even Dr. King made famous. Here he says, I do not pretend to understand the moral universe. The arc is a long one. My eye reaches but little ways. I can calculate the curve and complete the figure by the experience of sight. I can divine it by conscience. But from what I see, I am sure it bends towards justice. Thank you all for being here today. Please grab your candles or chalices. We are going to stay muted and say our chalice lighting words and go into our new spoken benediction. I'm going to put the words up so in case anybody doesn't know them. Oops. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. May we listen respectfully and fully, honoring our covenant and community. May we offer support, time, compassion, humor, and trust. May we be mindful of our intent and impact, taking responsibility for our words and actions. May we endeavor to grow spiritually, ever open to change, so that our UU principles may come to life. May it be so. I invite you all to switch into gallery view so you can see one another. I am going to put us into our break rooms. Actually, I'm going to take a moment and, wait a minute. If you're curious about my little thingamabobber that I showed you in the drawing there, I'm just going to put it up for a moment because hopefully it'll inspire when you're, oh, that's another app that need not be open. Sorry.
No, I'm not going to stay blank, but I may not talk. I may just be there. Stop it, Nancy. Okay.
So, yeah, I decided to base it on a chalice, and I thought universalism is part of that flame. And I put this, and I'm going to encourage you all to share today, and then maybe diagram what you're thinking. All right. Okay, so you can unmute as you like while it takes me a moment to put our rooms together. And I do want to ask you, and take me seriously, maybe start, the Racial Justice Working Group has already started this. So if you are interested, you can have this conversation.